that you see.
Chill, wait a minute. Pine cone or pine box and they trying to put you in it. You're gonna need your juju bushes and mantras to fix this. Use a 5-breathing technique to fortify your defenses.
But who, what, where, when?
Somebody you think is your friend. Stay away from street corners around the hour 11. Visualize yourself walking at night, encased in light. Heed not this counsel, you will reach heaven. But I'm only 23, I got no enemies. All I do is spit similes. Why would anybody wanna injure me? The nature of the threat to you, my son, is no injury. These dudes trying to injure me. Listen to me, says if you properly turn on your light, you'll raise up out of the sphere of danger, darkness, can overshadow bright. Man, it's a damn scam, use a damn sham. If not, you just stand, get the hammer, go blam, blam. Fix your eye, youngin'.
Probably the greatest story ever told. And you gotta go look up the story. This is the story of Ausar, right? The story of Ausar is an ancient Egyptian quote-unquote mythology, you know. What I like to, what Shechem and Shechem Ram F.I.M. was the first person I ever heard use this term, and that is what rightfully describes the story as a metaphorian, because what it does is it's a metaphor for your spiritual faculties and how they interact with each other. Right? So through this story, it's like, you know, the ancient Egyptians were brilliant because they were able to teach to children, basically, right, people of lesser development, this high knowledge, this high understanding of the spirit and how to work it, what it does, right, through the characters and situations in this particular story, you know. So basically, you know, I'll skim over it, so, you know, for the sake of time. Basically what happens is, you know, Ausar, who is God, right? Ausar is God on earth. Ausar comes to the land, wherever the land is, and Ausar civilizes the land, you know, cultivates the earth. Things are growing, you know, people are walking in harmony with a great understanding about life and everything that's here, right? Ausar's wife, Auset, is the devoted steward. You know, she's there with him, right? You know, Ausar, you know, as I go along with the story, I should break down the characters and what they are in our psyche, right? So Ausar would be man's consciousness, right? Or I should say man's conscience, right? That thing within man that says, you know, well, if I hit that man on the head, you know what I mean, it's probably a bad thing, I probably shouldn't do that, you know what I mean? You know, Ausar is man's, faculty of unity, of omnipresence, of that thing that's in me is in you. That's what Ausar is. Ausar is the understanding that once at the essence of your soul is at the essence of my soul as well. So, you know, really man cannot actually be separated. We're living separated individual existences because we each have a body, but, you know, separate, you know, or you know, getting away from this body, we're actually the same being, right? So that's what Ausar is. Ausar is the oneness, right? Auset is man's faculty of devotion, right? It's also man's ability for trance, right? To go into trance, right? You know, Ausar is that level within man that is caring and nurturing, you know, and nourishes, you know, others, right? And itself as well. This is Auset I'm talking about. Okay, so now in comes Set, right? Set is man's ego, right? It's the aspect of man that identifies with the earth and the things that are here versus the where we come from, right? The eternal realm, right? You know, through Set you get like the Crowleyism of do what thou wilt is the whole of the law, right? And that's just simply saying that, you know, my desires take precedent over everything, you know, whether you think it's right or not. You know, that's Set, that's Satan within you. That's the original word for Satan, was Set. So Set would be the brother of Ausar, right? So his brother basically tricks him into, you know, to get him in a position where he basically kills him. And you know, he kills him. You know, he chops up his body into 14 pieces, spreads it all over the world, and takes rulership of the throne. You know, of the throne. You know, and what that is that's, you know, speaking about how man's faculty of ego, right? Man's lower nature is what usurps his higher nature when, you know, he decides to do things based on his desires, right? You know, when his desires take precedence, what you've done is you killed the God inside of you. Okay, so what happens, right? So chops the body around, chops the body up, spreads it out into 14 pieces. That's a metaphor, actually, you know, as well as speaking to the aspects of the spirit and how they interact. The story was actually prophetic as well, and it points to various points in history where certain things went down. And, you know, in the understanding of spreading the body around the 14 pieces has to do with the various religions, you know, or shrines to Ausar, right, that were created from this ancient knowledge, right? You know, the bulk of the world's religions came straight from this story that I'm talking about. Not so much the story, but the ancient Egyptian pantheons, ancient Egyptian understanding of God and man and life, right? Okay, so now Set rules the land, right? You know, you can say Set ruling the land can be symbolic of a person, you know, now who smokes, right? They did it before, they didn't used to smoke, but they fell into the desire of it. Now they're smoking cigarettes, right? And it's killing their health, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so Set rules the land. And Ausar, you know, through her devotion, right, she goes around and she, you know, all the rest of the deities, you know, they kind of basically fell in line with Set's rule, you know. You know, now they work for him, pretty much. He's the hero, you know, he's the leader in the situation. Ausar was the only one who rebelled against that, and, you know, what she did was she spent her time going around the world and gathering up the pieces to the body of Ausar, right? You know, and what that is, that's, you know, whenever you need to really save yourself from some wicked activity or something that you know you're not supposed to be doing, right? You want to see a change, and, you know, you want to create a spiritual change. It's through your devotion that you remember that God that's been, you know, broken, right? You remember your conscience, you remember what's good. So she remembers the body of Ausar, she puts it together. And, you know, long story short, you know, she, you know, immaculately conceives through this dead body, right? She conceives the will, her will, which is Heru. Heru is the first understanding of the Savior in man, right? And, you know, like, you know, right, so Heru is, you know, the word that hero came from, right? You know, they call him Horus. I don't call him Horus because it's not his name. His name is Heru. So, right, Heru is born, right? So Heru is the will. So now what that's saying is that, you know, how your will is born is through your devotion and its focus on God, right? How devoted are you to the highest ideal? That is what's going to bring forth your will, right? You know, you could be, you know, Michael Jordan. You know, Michael Jordan was so devoted to basketball, which was, you know, that was his highest ideal at that point, right? Basketball, you know, and Michael Jordan was so devoted, you know, that he spent his time practicing. He did all that he could do to be the best. And when he got on that floor, you know, it was a wrap. You know what I mean? He was God in the flesh. He was Heru. You know what I mean? He was, you know, his will was all powerful on that court. You know what I mean? And, you know, same thing can be said about, you know, the person who focuses on his, you know, weed addiction and conquers it, right? Okay, so now Heru's, he's a young child. Set sends people to come and get him. What I mean? He escapes the situation. Eventually, he grows up into a grown man. So now, fully grown, Heru goes to, knock Set off of the throne and avenge his father's death. Because everything is in chaos now. That Set is at rule, right? So what happens is, so Heru basically is, he's the will and everything, but he's not quite powerful enough to defeat Set, right? So they battle various times, but it always simply ends in a stalemate. Heru, they basically go back to their corners and they got to come back at it another time. So during one battle, what happens is Heru's eye is gouged out by Set. They're in the grooves, and Set, boop, he knocks his eye out. So now, what Heru does is he goes to Tehuti. Right? Tehuti is the wisdom faculty in man. Right? Tehuti is the omniscience that knows all. So Tehuti, comes and spreads his light on Heru, and he restores the eye. So now, with the restored eye, Heru is able to now go and challenge Set and actually win the battle. He wins the fight, he wins the war. And he brings Set, before the council in Ma'at, and he's judged, and he's there's different stories on how the story ends. One version is that he is made, Set is not killed, even though they wanted to kill him. Set is actually a part of the family. He's actually a part of the being. Like your ego, there is a place for your ego, but it's not the top place, and it should be put in its place. So Set is made to be the wind that propels the boat of Ausar. Right. So, so basically, what happens is Heru, he gets his will up and he finally defeats Set. Right. The will finally, through its identification with what's high, which is, the father, Ausar, it is able to defeat the ego. Right. The portion of us that points downward towards the earth. So really, so we look at Heru as the hero, and he is, but really the hero of the story is actually Tehuti, because before Tehuti's influence, Heru only ever was able to achieve a stalemate, right? So we have to understand that portion in the story is a very big clue as to, how we're supposed to be approaching this game of life, right? And, we're not talking about, the oracle is only ever as good as the questions that are posed to it, right? So, if you are asking questions about, secular activities and, just trying to get various levels of information, asking about other people or whatever like that, then, okay, you'll get what you get, but you won't get spiritual growth. And that's what the tool is here for. The tool is actually here to show you how to defeat the Set within. Right, so you should, where your questions should go should be with regard to how do I come up spiritually, right? How do I, what should be my spiritual focus now? What should be my focus as I go through this year, right? What should be my focus as I go into this event, right? How do I achieve success at this mate relationship? How do I, what's my incarnation objective? What have I come here to learn and do while I'm walking this planet? These are the important questions of life, and these are the things that the oracle will show you. All right, so I think I covered a lot of that. I know I missed some things, but y'all won't forgive me because we won't be back. All right, till then, peace and love.
11:27, I was released from a tomb of an ancient latter day at 11:27 on a Saturday. Previously groomed in the arts of metaphysics and magic with all with disorder, intellect, they clear the trash away. Since an artist, because my mother was grooving on samba music and had the way in my belly basket days. Priestly cattle lives is here what I have to say, and these days it's a drastic path to have to navigate. I'm the last cat to rap this way, yo. General Mars rises the whole, Capricorn rises, the sun shines, it's midday, the sky's lit, the brightness is benevolent, and I'm heaven sent to earth. Many surprises for he who run a corruption policy, creating the crisis. The constellation of Scorpio, Jupiter joins the sun on a float over Neptune, serenades for the entrance of Jehovah. And yo, my name ain't Jay-Z, oh no, no.